How you doing, people? Welcome back to another ESO video. Today is about the Flame Staff passive changes on the current PTS. Now, just a disclaimer, we are in week 1. Anything can change at any moment, so don't panic. But I'm going to go over what they've done and why, and you can decide for yourselves whether you like it or not, or you could test it and see if you like it. Then give feedback to Zos. Obviously, before we get started, make sure you hit the sub button. If you do, the channel grows, more people see the information, and if you hit the notification bell as well, then you'll know when the next videos are coming. Right, let's get into it. So, this is currently the state of the Destro staff. So you may already know that Trifocus on the live server currently gives you a large increase to your heavy attack on a flame staff. So technically speaking, if you do a heavy attack, you will get 12% increase to that. That does stack with loads of other variables, and of course that can make it very, very high. But if you've used a flame staff before and you've heavy attacked, yes, it looks cool as a fireball, but it's weak. It can hit really hard, yes, but it's a flip of a coin. 9 times out of 10, you don't crit it, so you feel really deflated while you do a massive, 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 massive wind-up. Boring! Anyway, that's been that for a long, long time. We got used to it. We kind of didn't heavy attack unless we wanted resources. Now there's more incentive to that. So if you do heavy attack, you actually apply a damage over time effect for 20 seconds, which means while you do get resources back for heavy attack, and it does give you an extra bonus to it, rather than, oh look, I didn't crit, boo. You can still do your heavy attack. It will still do damage. You could still fail a crit, but now you've got this extra incentive to use it. So that, first of all, is actually a fairly nice change. I quite like that. Let's face it, most people didn't heavy attack with a flame staff, unless they had to. Anyway, that's not speaking for everyone. There are slight changes to that, obviously. Some people love it. Penetrating magic, this is slightly different as well. This affects all staves. I'm not going to go over lightning staff today, by the way. That's going to be in the second video, so watch that tomorrow, as long as I get that done. But this is a welcome change as well, because it did give you a benefit for Destro staff abilities, including lights and heavies and all that good stuff. Now, on live, this particular passive ignores 10% of resistances with destruction staff skills. Technically speaking, in PvE, the enemies have 18,200 resistances. 10% of that isn't a lot. You're looking at 1.8k, which is only 300 or 400 higher than a one-piece bonus. It's free, but it's not massive. And when there are buffs and debuffs in the room, that would fluctuate, because now the current enemy's resistances consider the 10% removal or ignorance to that. So it's a bit tricky, and it's not massively beneficial overall. So what they've done is they've equaled it to that of Minor Breach. All the time, you basically ignore 3k resistances. So anyway, this is a relatively good change alongside this free damage over time. So once every 20 seconds, do a heavy attack, and for the rest of the time, you just do extra damage anyway. Now, that hasn't changed. That's still the same. If you're holding a Destro staff, you get higher status chance. If you kill an enemy with a Destro staff, you get 3600 magicka back. Handy. That's still the same. This is different. And this is the one where people are either up in arms about it, or being quite curious as to what they could do with this. Bear in mind, before, this particular passive I'm now going to highlight used to pigeonhole the flame staff into single target damage. So, any single target damage you do was higher. So if you had a single target dot, a proc, a glyph, light attacks, all that stuff would benefit from that one passive, which would front load it to those types of playstyles, meaning all the damage over time you did in area of effect wouldn't be applied by that benefit or bonus. It would only be single target stuff. So if you were built to be single target only, flame staff made a lot of sense. It's changed. Inferno staves do not increase your damage anymore. Direct damage, any other damage, nothing. Instead, your status effects that fire do 500 more damage on their initial hit. So it changed from pigeonholing you into single target damage, which is unusual because most fire burns a room, not a single spot. But whatever. I mean, maybe it's a candle. But this also now pushes you into the area where you want to build for status effects. There are many ways to do that, but that does completely change the playstyle of it. Or maybe not. Maybe you could just have it as a nice passive, so when you conveniently get status effects, it's an addition nonetheless. Or you could push for it. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to make an entire build here, but I am going to underline some very solid points as to how you could manipulate this in your favor. So first of all, if you had, let's look at a different weapon so that we don't spoil anything just yet. So too late. Don't rewind it. Keep looking. Let's say an Auradon staff of this. Right. So what you've got here is if you have it fully gold, you have a 365% increase to status chance. So any damage types that you do, you have a chance to apply their status effect. Now, different types of damage have different percentage chances to do this, and it's in the tooltips, in the help options in-game, if you want to see all that stuff. But basically, we've got a 100% increase to status chance if you're holding a Destro staff, and then a 365% status chance from this particular trait. Now, bear in mind, it's not 100% chance to do it. It's 100% chance on top of what the chance is. So if it's already 5%, 100% on top is 10%. You get the idea. Now, while that's an option, there are also other options in the game. So, champion points for a start is not actually a choice. This is a passive that you can unlock indefinitely. Everyone can get this with no negative effects. So, you've got martial status and you've got magical status. So, all status effects types have got a 60% increase just by having these passives. You don't have to slot anything for that. So, that also helps. And at the same time, very specific skills and sets fire status effects as part of their toolkit, as part of their benefit or perk or bonus or whatever word you want to use towards that. Some of them guarantee that. So when you look at these skills, for example, you've got, obviously, every time you proc a status effect, you do 500 extra damage, which scales dramatically with weapon and spell damage and crit. This particular skill here, for on the Nightblade, words are hard, debilitate, I got there, don't worry, does magic damage over time, obviously. But every time it fires, you are guaranteed an overcharged status effect, which applies magic still. Every single tick. So every single tick of this skill, you now get a status effect, which you did anyway, and it has increased damage. That's a bit of a bonus there, because that comes from your flame staff as well. So big hit there. Technically speaking, if you were using this before, it's single target, so you still benefit from it. You just don't benefit from the raw skill. You benefit from the extras. Beast Trap. Really simple. The damage has a higher chance of hemorrhage status effect. So it's not guaranteed, but it's a very high chance. And the higher your chance on your overall build, the higher this is, and it stacks, etc., etc. You can basically apply hemorrhage every single tick if you're lucky. And that will also give you that extra 500 every time it pops. Then you've got stuff like this. Direct damage hits from this could apply the status chance or effect if you're lucky, but we have a weapon that has kind of got lost in time and people forgot about. If you go to Asylum Sanctorium, it doesn't matter if it's perfected or not. The actual second piece bonus or the 2-piece bonus is exactly the same. I know they both say 2 pieces because the staff is 2 pieces, but basically the first bonus you don't get if you've got perfected, non-perfected, but you do if you have. The second one, you always get it no matter what, it doesn't change. Basically, all you have to do is use Crush and Shock or Force Pulse or Force Shock, any morph, and every second cast will guarantee burning, chilled, and concussion. So before you would take them for their benefits from their status effects, now you can capitalize on constantly getting that damage. So every 2 casts, all 3 of those status effects will have ramped up damage. 500 for each one, that's 1.5k. Each one of them does set amount of damage anyway. You can also stack that with weapon, spell damage, crit, chance, crit damage, etc., etc. All of those, basically their initial hit, can hit, depending on your build, around the 4, 5, sometimes even 6k mark per proc. You do that every second cast, that's a substantial amount of damage increase. Not to mention Zaan, obviously, has a burn-in status effect guaranteed on it as well. And that applies all the time, as long as the proc is active. So all these things combined, now I'm not going to show you a full DPS check or test, I'm just going to give you a quick example as to how this could look. Now, I'm going to have to put some buffs and bonuses on, obviously, to see the ramp in damage, but basically you're looking at this. Put your beast trap down, wind up a nice heavy attack for that. Hit this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see where this is going? Cracking 90k here already, people. Let's stop that. Anyway, let's open up combat metrics. All of this overall is not a full fight. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is noticing how this does actually improve your overall DPS. Concussion here, just for that rotation there, just for that short period alone, was 3.8% of your overall damage. Hemorrhage, again, was 4.5% of your overall damage. doing like 8k ticks, which is insane. The initial hit is the one that does the most, but that's going to be there all the time. The longer that's up, obviously the more procs you had, obviously the more damage you're going to do. Chilled, again, 5.5, 3.1% of your overall damage. Yes, of course, the poison weapon is actually a glyph, but obviously because it fires more often because of it, you are going to get the damage over time from it, which is quite helpful, and although that didn't actually show in this list, so yay, combat metrics. Overcharged, again, 5.5 with 2.5% overall damage. It's a very short burst, obviously, but over a long period of time, that actually adds up. So your spammable does all the work for you. Not to mention burning, because it's so common on this particular setup, is just way up there. Again, that was just a short burst for a few seconds, doing just short of 1.2 million damage. Over a prolonged period of time, these are very big contributors overall. They do really, really help. And although this here is a small difference, 2.5%, just from one dot ticking consistently, it does add up. So I feel like it does kind of pigeonhole you into a certain area where you should be forced, if you like, to build for status chance, or again, you could take advantage of it just being there. But I also think that it's not the end of the world for the flame staff by any shape of the imagination or any stretch of the imagination. At the moment, I think the idea is good, but I think to allow it to be more beneficial for a wider audience or a wider or broader scale of players, I think perhaps the damage of the status chance proc, or the status proc itself, should be a bit higher, because then people that don't build for too much status can still get a decent amount out of it in comparison to the drop they're going to gain from, or lose, whichever way you want to look at it, from the single target damage they're already doing. It's still very, very good. But then they have to be very careful how they balance it, because if you do build for just status and you start taking advantage of other sets that have guaranteed status chance on them, that could machine gun kind of trigger statuses over and over and over and over and over. And while that is a fun play style, you don't want to make that so it's only the way to play. So it's a tricky thing to balance, but it's a very interesting take on trying to level out all the weapons so their flat bonuses are pretty much the same, apart from side effects. One of the side effects which don't really line up with that is the lightning staff. We are going to go over that in another video. Hopefully this was somewhat insightful. Try stuff out on PTS, see if you like it. If you don't like it, that's fine. Just tell Zosh you don't like it and tell them why. If you do like it, also follow the same suit. Send your feedback from the PTS. That's how the game grows over time. They take the feedback on board. No, it doesn't mean you're going to get your own way, but at least you get to speak. Anyway, people, thank you very much for watching. I hugely appreciate support. If you're not subscribing already, obviously hit that button, hit the notification bell as well so you know when the new videos go up. Plenty of shorts out there as well coming daily, so keep an eye on those. They're actually clips from live streams. 3 hours worth of stuff and you get to see 15 seconds. Maybe you should go and check me out on Twitch. Also, you can check me out on social media for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the website xynodegaming.com, which is massive. And of course, you can support the channel on Patreon financially so I can keep doing this for a job. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.